my name is Benjamin Holguin, and I am super excited because today is the first day that we are starting our series of coffee videos. And my goal over the next few years is to become a coffee expert. So, what I'll be doing is I'll be learning and then I'll be sharing what I learn through these videos. So let's go ahead and get started today with our 5 tips to brewing better coffee at home. Let's go ahead and discuss the brew method because that's our first tip today. I actually like using the pour over method, which is a great place to start for beginners. We have water that goes into what looks like a funnel, and this one is called the Melitta pour over device. And what it does is you put a filter in there with this, the grounds go on the top of the cone, and then a cup goes at the bottom. And then this specific one actually regulates the water flow. So as you can see there, it's pretty simple and straightforward. In order to successfully accomplish this brew method, the pour over method, we're going to need obviously our pour over device, which has taken a few casualties over the years, unfortunately. And then we're going to need some type of kettle or some type of pouring device. And in this case, I actually have what's called a gooseneck kettle. And this allows me to regulate the water flow a little better than most kettles. You can also use one of these, which is just a regular standard water kettle that you can pick up pretty much anywhere. Or if you're absolutely desperate and in college, like I was at one point and completely broke, then you could also use a measuring cup. And then you could just pop it in the microwave or boil your water on the stove and then just use this. But this is kind of a last resort type deal. So let's go ahead and talk about also the grinders that we're going to use. Now there's 2 different types of grinders out there. The first being a blade grinder, which has a couple blades in there, and that basically just hacks away at the beans. I do not recommend it because it causes them to fragment into all kinds of different uneven pieces that when it comes to actually extracting a good coffee from that bean, you're not really going to be able to do it. So let's go ahead and talk about what I use, which is a Burr grinder. As you can see in there, it has a little device, almost like gears, that when you put the beans in there, it grinds them together and produces a much more even grind. So when you go to actually brew your coffee, it's going to be much more consistent. The water will flow evenly and be able to extract from all the grounds as opposed to some of the grounds. We actually need a 4th piece of equipment, and that's going to be a kitchen scale. This is going to be vitally important because if you can measure out and create consistent measurements every single time, that's going to help you when it comes to actually making a consistent coffee time and time again. Second tip of the day is going to be water. Coffee is 98 to 99% water, and inside your water you actually have these little particles. Those little particles, when it makes contact with the coffee, it helps to pull some of the coffee out of the grounds and into the water, and that's part of the way that you're actually getting your coffee in the end. Do not use tap water because there's typically chlorine in there, unless you live somewhere else that's not California, because California water, it sucks. So let's go ahead and talk about what we can use, and that's going to be filtered water that you get from the store that's purified. I use this regularly and it's really good. And then what I also use is a water source that is filtered with a carbon filter. This is absolutely great. I got a Brita filter and I use it on the regular. So that's one of those, a couple things that you guys can use that'll make your water very good.
Tip number 3 is choosing the right coffee beans. My recommendation is to stop by your local roaster if you have one in the area, just because they're likely to have the freshest beans. If their bags have a roasted on date as opposed to an expiration date, that'll tell you how fresh the coffee is. Always get whole beans as opposed to ground beans, and consider starting off with a medium roast, just to see how you like that. And then when you get home, make sure you're using this bag within 3 to 5 weeks to ensure maximum freshness.
The 4th step is going to be your grinding and measuring of the beans. So a kitchen scale isn't absolutely necessary, but it's going to make your life a lot easier because the alternative is using one of these, which is a tablespoon. And with the tablespoon, you're going to measure out about 14 grams, but it's not going to be consistent. So if you need to use a tablespoon because you don't have a kitchen scale, that's fine, go ahead and use it. But when it comes to pouring water, there's no way to watch and to see exactly what it is that you're pouring and how much you're pouring. So just keep that in mind moving forward, and if there's something that you're going to invest in, a kitchen scale is a great place to start. Now, before we even grind the coffee, we have to consider a couple things. The first is how much coffee do we want to end up with, and then how strong do we want the coffee to be in the end. Now, today we're just going to use what we consider the golden rule, and that is a 1 part coffee to 17 parts water. That's going to give us a very consistent brew when it comes to the end and we actually get to drink it. So measuring out the grounds, we want to make sure that we have the scale set to 0 with the container on it. And then we're going to be measuring out 20 grams of coffee. And then if you just do 20 times 17, that is 340. So that's 1 part coffee to 17 parts water.
Go ahead and see there.
All right, perfect. We're right at 20 grams. So we're going to throw this into the blender and brew the coffee right afterwards. And we're actually going to be going for a medium fine consistency, which, to give you some perspective about that, that's going to be a little bit coarser than regular table salt, but it's going to be a little bit finer than regular sea salt. Step 5 is going to be the actual pouring of the water. Now that we've boiled the water to between 195 and 205 degrees, that's going to be the optimal for actually getting a good extraction. So if you don't have a thermometer on your kettle, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to boil the water on the stove, let it hit boiling point, and then take it off the heat for about let's say 30 seconds to a minute, which will get you down to the 195 to 205 degrees. We're also going to be using these Melitta coffee filters, number 4. We need to fold off the excess on the edges, drop it into the cone, pre-wet the filter to take away any of the papery taste that it has, and then some also like to warm the units before actually pouring. So now our focus is going to be on the blooming process. And the blooming process is the part where we release some of the carbon dioxide gases from the beans, and that'll make the coffee less bitter. So let's go ahead and drop the beans in here. Shake it so that it's level. Turn on your scale, and then this will automatically zero it out so that it counts for the entire unit. And for the base weight. Now let's go ahead and get started. So this blooming process, we're using double the water that we put in for coffee. So we put 20 grams of coffee, we're going to put in 40 grams of water, and this will start releasing some of the gases. And you'll be able to see the coffee actually start breathing. Okay, well, we're pretty close. Not quite, but very close. Okay, and you'll want to leave this in for about 30 to 45 seconds.
The entire pour-over process should take anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. If less than 3 minutes, chances are your grounds are too coarse and the water's passing right through, leaving the coffee unextracted, and your final product will be weak. If more than 5 minutes, chances are the grounds are too small, water will be pulling up at the top, over-extracting it and leaving it bitter. Take note of the small, circular motions toward the center of the cone. This allows us to distribute the water evenly throughout the grounds, instead of creating air pockets on the side where the water flows through, straight to the bottom, under-extracting the coffee and making it weak. As the water approaches the surface of the coffee, continue to add water in increments of 50 to 60 grams, and then take note, we did skip through part of this video and sped up some of it so that you don't have to sit through 5 minutes of dripping water. Occasionally the grounds will build up on the sides of the wall where you'll want to go ahead and take a lap around just to keep those grounds in the mix at all times. At the end of the day, it's important to enjoy what you're drinking, so go back, experiment a little bit, change one variable at a time, and see what you think. I'd say try staying away from some of the milk and sugar for a little while, just so you can get used to trying the black coffee and appreciating it for what it is.
So there you have it. Those are the 5 tips to brewing better coffee at home. If you guys like the content, please feel free to leave a like down below. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, or anything else that you'd like to voice, please leave a comment down below as well. Over the next, I don't know how long, we're going to be making more videos, hopefully once a month, documenting my experiences as I hope to become a coffee expert. So before we go, let's go ahead and try to see if this coffee was any good. Yeah, it turned out pretty good. So, I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Have a good one.